I would request Nitin sir to give his opening remarks for the topic, please.
Thank you, Shreyas. Just about last week, we received an email from our talent leader saying that, in Deloitte, we should avoid the culture of calling each other sir or madam. And so I'm just Nitin. And I like that, at least, because all of us are equal when it comes to learning. In fact, I would see that, my whatever, I don't want to reveal my age, but whatever 30 odd years post qualification, maybe I may be at a disadvantage to learn some of these technology related topics as compared to the youngsters. So maybe I may be junior to many of the participants in that context. But yes, I think as a chartered accountant and otherwise also in this VUCA world, the only thing we can do is to ensure that we keep learning, and that is how we will be able to add value to ourselves, to our clients, and to the society at large. Also, at BCS, it's a volunteer organization driven by volunteers. So if I borrow that famous adage, I would say it is for the volunteers, by the volunteers, and of the volunteers. So all of us are equal at Technology Initiative Committee. Our colleague Namrata tells me that in last 5 months, we have done conducted activities that in terms of number of hours of training, in fact exceeds, or maybe now far exceeds, the number of hours of training, etc., we would have done in last 3 years since this slightly reconfigured technology initiative committee came into existence at Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. And coming to the topic of the day and speaker of the day, of course, Shreyas will introduce him formally, but I must say that he is one of the find for us in 2020. So welcome to the BCS family, Narasimhan, and we look forward to us, scaling much greater heights together, and your help to extend the digital literacy of our members in CA community. So with that brief introduction, I hand over back to Shreyas for a formal introduction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nitin. So, friends, today to take us through the topic for the day, we have CA Narasimhan with us. Narasimhan is a futurist by nature. He is a GRC professional. He is a partner at Ken & Company based out of Bangalore, Karnataka. He is an international speaker on IS assurance, data analytics, cybersecurity, forensic audit, data privacy laws, and emerging technologies. He specializes in office automation solutions, risk-based audit, testing of internal controls, SOX compliances, etc. His areas of interest are artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and big data analytics. He is a faculty at CISA courses and also similar courses on blockchain technologies. He has recently authored a book on digitizing of CA practice. So I'm sure with this brief introduction, Narasimhan will be able to add a lot of value to this session today. And I hand over the proceedings for the session to Narasimhan.
Thank you so much. Let me quickly share my screen. Just give me a minute. So if you want to, you can keep your cameras on because it's a very small close circle group. We are about close to about 20 people. So feel free to stop me, interrupt me. You can switch on your camera with your mics on mute just to avoid that echoing. So thank you so much BCS again for inviting me. We can have it as an open house. I'm totally okay if you want me to disregard the PPT and speak on general context as well. I'll be happy to do that. I will leave the forum, but there are a few thoughts which I thought I will put it across initially, and then let's go ahead. So first and foremost, let me spend some time to tell you what is this DCMM and why it became important. See, what happens is our institute took up a lot of initiatives, and one of those initiatives was coming up with this wonderful maturity model. See, everywhere in the world, every company, every software company, every technology, they have some sort of a maturity rating. And a maturity rating assesses two things. One, it says how good you are. Second, it also says how bad you are. And more than how bad you are, it talks about how can you improvise yourself. That's the core model of any maturity rating. And if you look into software companies, they have what is called as the CMMI level 1, 2, level 3, etc. If you look into these, quality standards, they have what is called green belt, orange, black, and other things. Then they said, why can't we bring in something similar to that for our profession? Of course, we cannot advertise that, I'm so and so, but at least we can measure ourselves, benchmark ourselves, and improvise. So then we brought, people brought in together and they said, we'll bring in a checklist. And that was the DCMM one. But what had happened was that was very, very, a little, of course, with the passage of time, it got outdated and, it had one structured approach and it had one major lacuna. The lacuna was that you could rate yourself and assuming you got a rating scale of A, B, C, whatever is there, some point score. After that, what to do? That was never spoken. And that is where this model became a big advantage or a big boon. We said we will come up with a version 2.0 where I had the opportunity to co-author it along with one more gentleman from Bangalore, a chartered accountant. So we said we'll come up with our thoughts. We will say this is what is the underlying fact. Can we improvise the underlying checklist? So we focused on improvising the checklist. And then we said, can we put in guidance so that any person who wants can do it? And it's not a very big document. It's a checklist which is probably about 5 pages. And we said, if you have filled something over there and you have scored bad, how do you improvise? That is where we came up with the implementation guide. And as though this is not sufficient, this was what happened in 2019. 2020, we had this era of virtualization, an era of work from home. So our honorable president of ICI, he had suggested, form a committee. We need to come up with something interesting on how do I do a virtual accounting firm? How do I have a virtual accounting firm? That is something which, brought in as a concept. And we came up with a strategic roadmap to virtual accounting guide. That is expected to be published by end of this month. I think there's some internal discussions which are going through. But assuming this gets through, these are 2 very interesting publications of our own institute, which is talking about how as a professionals we can get better. See, there's so many guidance which our institute gives, accounting standard, tax, and other things. None of them speak about our own office management. So this is something which I found very handy and I was happy that I was able to contribute. And of course, I am also learning a lot of these things and I am also saying that, I will also implement in our office and see how best we can see the results. So with that as a context, let me quickly move, to explain a little more into the depth. I hope my screen is visible and I can just carry on with the remaining part. Yeah, so I'm Narasimhan Elangovan, practicing chartered accountant. My area of specialization is technology. I'll quickly move on. General discussion, there I might be discussing, giving references of few apps. This is only for educational purpose and just for our mutual purpose, nothing against a favorism or something like that. So let me take you through, these are few areas which I thought I will take you folks through. I might skip the order plus minus to bring in some bit of practicality and an element of realistic information. But this is basically what I want to cover. What exactly is this DCMM2? Let me spend some time on giving you an overview. And I'll probably take you live into the document implementation guide. And I'll give you one case study saying this is what is the problem. How do you use this guide to solve it? Very, very simple approach. So let's go one at a time. First and foremost, what is this DCMM 2.0? So what happened was, let's look, of course, I developed this DCMM 2.0 last year, but I thought let me make it more relevant today. Let's see our situation today. We are living in a post-COVID era. It's a sudden time period where importance of technology, all of a sudden everybody got to know. Technology nahi chahiye. Until last year it was technology nahi chahiye. This year it is technology hi chahiye. Correct? So that's the extent to which involvement is actually come. And we are also talking about an era of automation. We're talking about investing in technology. Everybody says technology is the new buzzword. AI, blockchain, RPA, I don't know what not. Let's look from importance from our own workplace perspective. Without technology today we can't work. And thanks to this work from home, it's become a mandatory. Digitization and technology have impacted our profession. And today, the way the people look at our profession is totally changing. There are many of these advisory services, people don't come to a CA for various reasons, saying that we sometimes, in some of the cases, they feel that we are technology, not so come forward. There are many cases where I've gone and introduced myself with the CIOs of the organization without even telling the fact that I'm a chartered accountant, get started. And then I connect the dots and I say, see, I'm a risk consultant, this is where my domain is, and then bring it. So then they're surprised, oh, that's nice to see a CA coming on technology front. Let's look on from a different angle altogether. Accounting firms. We should anticipate the changes which is actually taking place. Predominantly, whatever you say, all our firms are accounting firms, largely. There are no doubt some very firms which are specialized in audit, specialist in a consultant practice, etc. But most of us as a firm, especially the smaller firms, are all doing accounting. And we need to know that over a span of few years, the accounting itself will change. And we need to start gearing up for it. Because when we say we have to gear up for a change, it all begins from here. It's like you want to climb Mount Everest. First thing is over here, you should get a confirmation, yes, I'm ready to climb Mount Everest. Only after that, then your fitness comes into picture. If your mind is not ready to take that risk, we will not move ahead. And today, our mind is forced to adopt technology thanks to the things which is happening. I only think we have to fine tune it a little bit more, because it should not be a situation that COVID chale gaye, I'll get back to my normalcy. Let's do something more better. And COVID has always made us all realize the importance. But all said and done, how do I begin my maturity journey? What is the steps I have to follow? And please keep in mind, there is nothing called that you reach the ultimate stage. Every time you keep on improvising, and it's a continuous process. If you speak from an ISO angle, we call it as a PDCA cycle. Plan, do, check, act. You plan, you do, you check it, you act it. Again, you re-perform this entire thing. So let me spend some time quickly on this DCMM 2.0 without beating around the bush. So as I said, DCMM 1.0 was a good guide. It gave us some basic checklist, but it had some sort of a, it was something which is generic in nature. So what were the major things which DCMM 1.0 did not have? We said we'll bring it to DCMM 2.0. So what are the few things? This one was released, of course, 2017. It gave a basic baseline document. It gave us a tool or a tips to build a strategy, to skill, to leverage the opportunities, etc., etc. But how do I take it up to the next level? And that's where we brought in this 2.0. We said, first and foremost, not every CA firm is equivalent to that of another CA firm, which means one method or one solution may be perfectly fitting for A organization, may not fit for a B organization. I'm sure you will agree. In your friend's firm and your firm, your friend started off something, it is going great. Your firm, it is not going great, or vice versa, for various reasons. So there is no one size which fits all solution. So we said, what is it that the CA firms do? They do accounting practice, which is bookkeeping, compliance, whatever is there. Second, they do audit practice. Audit can be various buckets. I'm not going into that. They do audit. The third is purely taxation. It could be return filing. It could be or taxation and compliance. So we said accounting एक काम है, taxation and compliance एक और काम है, and तीसरा काम है audit. And fourth work which we also do is consulting. It could be valuation. It could be IS audits, technology audits. Various things. So these are the four large buckets. So we said, can we do what is called as a discipline-specific issues, discipline-specific challenges? So we brought in that with the same concept or the same theme, and that's where that first point, what you're seeing on the screen, makes sense. Then we said it is not sufficient if we make them adaptable to today's requirement. We also need to make them adaptable for the next. That is when I personally said, sir, we will bring in a section on emerging technologies, which the committee readily accepted. Let's do it. So we brought in the section 4, which is an adaptation on emerging technologies. How do I adopt to these emerging technologies? I speak about IoT, I speak about blockchain. Of course, I'm not saying that have you done a blockchain audit. because blockchain itself is just shaping up. So my focus there is your knowledge aware that what is blockchain? Do you know how to, interpret a case where blockchain is applicable, not applicable? So I've gone at that level. I did not go saying that, are you ready for blockchain audit? It doesn't make sense. Because even the largest of the companies who wanted to implement blockchain, they're still in prototype modes. So therefore, you need to understand from that angle. And then the third most beautiful thing which we brought in is that for every question which we have, assuming you are not able to score well, what is it that you can do to score well? Let's take a simple example. A very, very simple example. I have a website name. I have a website @something.com. Now, when I have @something.com, I can have an email ID with my name @something.com. But the real question is, am I using only the email ID at the domain, or am I also having a website? And if I have the website, is my website updated? And when was the last time updated? So we went to that level of granularity wherever it was necessary. And that is where DCMM2 became much more a better framework. And just to bring you to the context, DCMM1, which our institute came in, I was of course not involved, there were multiple authors. We improvised that DCMM2 1.0 to 2.0. And in DCMM 1.0, the European Accounting Federation, they themselves have adopted this. So if you visit, I think, the European Federation website, you will see that DCMM maturity. And they give the acknowledgement to our own institute. DCMM 2.0, I think our institute has applied the copyright. So hopefully it gets, so I'm happy that one of the publication of mine, our institute is owning the copyright. So it's a matter of happiness that somewhere my knowledge is being used in this community. Anyways, let's quickly go into DCMM 2.0. So what does this consist of? We said, let us divide this. And if you remember, I told you, we had to divide it categorization-wise. But even if I create categorization-wise, don't you think most of the issues which is there in a CA firm will be there in every firm? So there are common issues, there are specific issues. So therefore, we decided we will have multiple sections. Section A. It speaks about level of your firm's internal processes. And this is a very, very nice exercise. It all it speaks of is level of your internal process. What does it mean? Do you have a simple domain name? Do you have a website? When have you last updated it? Do you have latest articles, blog on it? So we went to that level and to say that, hey, this is how you measure that. We in fact went to a stage where do you also have a backup in place? How do you take the backup of data? Correct? Is there an automated tool or is it manual? So it becomes like a comprehensive checklist. In fact, using this, you can benchmark any organization. That is the truth. Forget about a CFM. You can benchmark any organization because 70% of these processes will be the same. 20-30 are specific to some other industry. So usage of IT by the firm for its own internal processes, it could be billing, it could be document management. That's one more headache. Where and how am I managing the documents? One major challenge. How am I managing the client relationship? You can maintain it in Excel sheet only. We are not saying that you need to have a software, but is that Excel sheet well governed? What if somebody hits an accidental some other button, everything goes off? That is the reason we prefer for a tool, correct? How am I tracking staff attendance? Am I able to track the work? Basic issues like cybersecurity, protection of your, having a simple antivirus. It was a shocker in one of the sessions where I was speaking. Some person came and asked me, sir, can we have a system without an antivirus? Why? I asked him, sir, it's too expensive. I have just started my practice. Sir, I agree all of those. But today the world, you see how it is. Risk is just outside. The moment we plug that Wi-Fi connection or that Wi-Fi network, risks are actually in and around. The second bucket is how do I focus on the talent pool? And when I use the word talent pool, I'm referring to the resources. How do I develop the talent? How do I bring in the digital capabilities? Now here it talks about attracting staff, retaining staff, developing the staff. Focus on all of these. Because today one of the other challenges which we have is staff turnover. Correct? So how can I manage this? And one of the other question is that only if I am there, my office runs. If I'm not there, office does not run. I agree. But that should over a point of time change. Cream work only if I am there, office runs. Agreed. Because you can't get everything a replacement for. But at least the majority's traditional domains or the works which has to go on, can it go on without my involvement? That is what you have to look into. Next, this is a new area which we brought in, discipline specific categorization. We said we'll go to these 4 categories. For audit, we'll give the requirements. For taxes and compliance, we'll give these requirements. For accounting and management support, accounting, compliance, management related support. And of course, last is your management consultant. And the last bucket which I told you was adaptation to these emerging technologies. Okay, so that's basically how this DCMM 2.0 actually got started. And we also said we will rate you. We will rate you. And that is where a firm maturity rating comes in. Just a reminder, this rating cannot be published. It's an internal rating. Okay, if you want, you can ask your friend to rate your firm. That's totally your choice. But this is merely an internal exercise, not to be published, and it's a violation of code of ethics if you publish it. Hello. Sorry, just give me a minute. Okay. So what is this firm maturity rating? We said we'll call it as a level 1, level 2, level 3 firm in very simple language. Level 1 indicates that the firm is in nascent stages. And I believe many of the initial firms, when they get started, they fall here. It's in a very, very nascent stages. Technology you're just using. The maximum technology you may have probably might be one. There are so many people who are having 1 or 2 people in their office. One laptop, internet connection, that's all. Nothing wrong in you having that. But in that itself, you can do so many things. Correct? So are you taking steps to upgrade your digital competency? Or will you be still left lagging behind? Correct? So therefore, that level 1 is the nascent stage. Level 2 is where you have said you have made some progress. You adopted technology. I would say a very large bucket of people will fall into. Very large bucket. I would say at least a good 60% of the CA population will fall under 60, maybe probably even 75, you can argue. Maybe 5 to 10% only falls under the level 1. Indicates that the firm has made progress in terms of adopting technology, but we'll have to fine tune. And the third could be level 3. They have made fairly advanced progress. They've in fact gone ahead to a certain extent where they're already considering usage of these advanced technologies. They have funding, they have resources for various reasons. And please bear in mind, this level 1, level 2, level 3 is measured for each of those sections independently. Why? Somebody is in accounting, he may not even require those controls which is there in audit, unless he may have larger audit clients. So you may feel that, I might be sufficient with this itself. So therefore, level 1, level 2, level 3 is independent of those sections. So I hope that is clear. So let's quickly move ahead and see how can I give you a walkthrough of the guide and tool. And therefore, what I thought I will do is, I will give you a live walkthrough. Okay. So let me quickly flip the screen. Okay. So if you visit our ICAI website, okay, you can just type in, you can do it parallelly if you want to with me. You can just type it as ICAI DAB. Okay, this is the Digital Assurance Accounting Board. The first link is the profile of DAB. You just scroll down and just search for 2.0. You will get the Digital Competency Maturity Board. Please do open it. You will get a PDF like this. Let me quickly swap the screen so that I am able to bring it here. Now this is the 2.0 guide. Close to about 97 pages. Ignore the initial intro, etc. Good 90 pages of content, which is all implementation tips. Let's look into what are we speaking about. Correct. So we have the introduction. All these are general gap, and here I've said what is this DCM 2.0, how, why, etc. Okay, and this is where I said you can use it only for self-evaluation, but you are not to publish it. So please remember that. Now we said what are the sections, discipline specific, and this is what is the firm maturity rating. I told you level 1, level 2, level 3. This is the marks score. Of course, this was not relevant in the PPT, but just you should be aware of this. Now, how do you do the scoring? We'll come to it a little later. This is the most beautiful thing, the implementation guide. You went wrong somewhere, this guide will sort of help you, guide you to say, okay, this is where you scored, this is what you can do. And then how do you go to the maturity? I'll cover this a little later. Okay, and look at this contents. This contents itself can act as a checklist. Those of you who want to do audit of technology of some other company, you can just look into this content. That itself is your ready-made checklist. What is the level of automation of your firm? How are you managing digital identity? Do you have a digital identity? What is your digital identity? Your email address, your website. How are you having that? Correct? Your Facebook profile, your LinkedIn profile. So all of those, how are you managing? Next is operational process. Is your day-to-day operational work automated? Then you have your redundancy and continuity. What is redundancy? Your backup, business continuity plan, etc. Then you have your mobile devices and data security. Now this speaks about how safe have you kept your devices? Do you have those tools? Do you have the electronic payments, copyright license? So this gives you a general list. Then you have your section B, which is purely on resource pool, on your employees. How do you have the skill set? Are they trained enough? What is the qualification they have? Do they have the digital etiquette? Do they know how to deal with digital threats? How creatively are you using technology? You know, whole lot of things which comes under this bucket. And then the last one is section C, or rather, you know, discipline specific. Section C1. Here it talks about level of automation with respect to an audit. Then you have tax and compliance, correct? Then you have your accounting, and then you have your section 4, which is on your management consultancy. And last you have the section D, which talks about advanced emerging. So let's go to each of them one by one. Okay, look at this. Section A, level of automation of the firm's internal process. Now, what is the focus over here? The focus is on how do you manage the digital identity. Now for this, if you read through, it's a very simple document as I told you. How do you score? Manage digital identity. Do you have a domain name? If the answer is yes, please give yourself 1 point. If you feel the answer is no, ignore it. What is a domain name? A domain name could be a simple website. Now, for example, this is my domain name. This is my firm's website. It's just loading, but that is a domain name. So tomorrow, if somebody says and searches that Ken and Co, that yes, we have a domain name, we have a digital presence. So therefore, it is taken care. Now, how do you use this further? What do you do out of that? That is totally your choice. So that is the first. Let's quickly move on to the second one. Has it been registered? Now, unless this domain has been registered today in India, it is not possible for you to have a valid domain, or it cannot open it. So therefore, that's critical. Next, does your firm have a website? Is the website updated on a regular basis? When was the last time you updated? Is the website interactive and dynamic? What is an interactive and dynamic? Let me show you here. Can you see some sort of images appearing here? If I click on next, something going on. Right? So this is an interactive website. What's a very static website? A static website could be something like this. You know, I have both of them. Of course, my website is also under development. But let's say, you know, a very simple thing. It just has some information like this. So it doesn't have too much of exciting things. Correct? So you just have a basic things like this, and that's about it. Correct? So do you have an interactive website? Now, can employees and articles log in? Now, this is something which is very, very subjective. Now, some companies, what they do, they have to log in from their website only and log in their email ID. Some cases, it may not be there. So in that case, you decide whether it's a yes, no, not applicable, and accordingly good. Some other companies, clients also can log in. This is an interesting thing which I have noted. You know, you can give access to your folder, file, etc. even for your clients. You can sort of, you know, ask complaints or questions, queries, etc. Then, does the firm have a corporate mail ID? Am I using @gmail.com or am I using @ken-co.in or @cafirm.com? Is it available only for partners? Is it available for articles? So it indicates the level of maturity. Now please keep in mind, for all you know, your firm You may feel very, very happy if you had just two email ID for your partner@domain.com, for your article staff @gmail.com. That's absolutely fine. Nobody's denying it. But from a maturity perspective, you are under that level. Remember, it doesn't mean that the third maturity is always where you have to reach. It is a desire to go to that stage. But for certain reasons, you feel that by being in level 2 itself gives me the comfort. That's absolutely fine. It's a very, very simple thumb rule. How much money do I want to make? It's very, very subjective. How much satisfaction do I want to have? It's different. How many clients do I need to have? Totally subjective. Some people will say, no, sir, only if I have 1,000 clients, I'm happy. Some people say, I want the entire world to be my clients. Some fellows say, sir, what is the point of all this? I have 5 clients, I'm rendering services, I get my money, I'm happy. What is that? Roti kapda makan aa gaya. So it's a subjective thing. Correct? Let's move on. Is it available for articles? Are the mails stored in external server? Is there an access to drive or sharing the large editable files? Then look at this. Do you have social media presence? You need to have a LinkedIn presence today. I mean, you can decide whether your firm should have LinkedIn presence or you should have LinkedIn presence or both of them. It's totally your strategy. Do you have, does the firm answer to all the queries posted on a page on a timely basis? Is there a minimum one update posted in the firm by 1 month? So like this, we went on to define it. And if we know that, if the last 2 or 3 questions, if you notice, it means that only larger firms do it. That is why the maturity rating is higher. Smaller firms may probably not be doing it. For all you know, you might still be scoring 1 or 2, you might still feel happy with it. The choice is yours. Right? So that is the focus area and that is the thought process we put in. Now here comes the beautiful piece of it. Implementation date. Now suddenly somebody says, I don't have domain ID, what to do? Okay, go to the next step. Having firms or practice units domain name makes the entity look professional. It obviously means more. @gmail.com versus @yourcfm.com, it means more professional. Privacy, protection, etc. If the entity publishes website through an ISP or a web hosting, then there's a URL such as www.yourwhatever.com. This is a generic address, we have spoken what it means. Then implementation. Select the domain name registrar. Now, what is the domain name registrar, GoDaddy, etc.? You'll have to select. Once you have selected them, then you should choose a domain name. It should be easy. You cannot write your entire full name as a domain name. For example, there are 4 partners. You cannot write the entire 4 full names of their partners as their this thing. Correct? So I've seen many companies which have a very long domain name. Who's going to type so much? Who's going to remember? It's not easy to remember domain names, so therefore better search engine ranking also you'll not get. Domain should be registered in the name of the firm and not in the name of individual. So these are all the maturity tips you'll have to keep in mind. Below is an example of where all you get. Then we speak about website. What are the implementation tools of website? So I hope you're able to get the logic which we spend time and then we put in this. So this becomes a very good read. And let me tell you, you need not read the entire guide. Just because you bought the Income Tax Act, do you read the entire Income Tax Act? The answer is no. You read what is relevant for your case. You read what is relevant for your this thing. Of course, for a CA examination, we had to read. We didn't have an option. But in a practical world, if an amendment goes through on the entire budget, let's take an example. There is an amendment which happened in the income tax from a taxation of trust. Many of them feel that that's not my bucket, don't read. There are some cases of transfer pricing. Many of them feel transfer pricing is not my bucket. There are some people who only go into transfer pricing because that's their area of interest. So you can pick and choose what you want by referring the index and scrolling down. But it is highly recommended that at least once you go through the entire thing, and it is recommended that you take up this assessment. Okay, and there is an online platform where you can do this assessment also. I'll speak about that a little bit. Okay, then we also talk about social media presence. And we say social media is a central part. You need to follow ICA code of conduct. Of course, we are not explaining code of conduct because that's altogether different. So we said follow ICA code of conduct. Social media can be used for a brand awareness, making people aware, etc. Now, what all you can do, how you can adopt social media, what are the tips of that, all of this. And today, these points like conducting webinar at regular intervals, Twitter account could help, your LinkedIn account could help, and today LinkedIn account is a must for at least CS. Correct? You have something called Quora, where question and answers, you answer it. Maybe, who knows, some client might come. At least you're making your presence felt. Today, the more the presence is felt online, the more is the possibility for a business to succeed. Then we go into operational process, 1.2. Now here we focus on attendance, biometric, leave policy. Do you have mobile device, personal digital assistants? How are you tracking that? How are you have an internal communication system? And trust me, to have an internal communication system is not very expensive. I use a tool called Click, which you can notice over here. A very simple software. I have my colleagues over here. I know who is active, who is not active. I know how many of them are working now. Of course, they may not have updated, etc. And I can set my status. I can set my status that I'm busy, or I can go for lunch, tea break. I can do a group call, calling 2-3 people, and I have the list of these folks. Or whatever I want, I can track them. And the beauty of this is I know this is different from my WhatsApp. Why? The problem with WhatsApp is that it is flooded with so many messages. And you send a message on WhatsApp, whatever group you have, etc. You will read that immediately. Your friend would have sent one more message, or your article staff's friend or your employee's friend would have sent some other message. Our attention will just go, and that is where these becomes very handy. Correct? So that's where this becomes important. Next, do you have a centralized file storage system? It could be as simple as a Google Drive. It could be as simple as a OneDrive. Do you have that? Correct? So that's a centralized file storage. Then you have internal workflow. You have a process where somebody uploads, somebody approves it, things like that. Then you have electronic database, office management tools do you have, and it speaks about customer relationship software do you have. So this is a fairly large list. And once this is done, it talks about a whole lot of things of implementation guides. And we've also gone one step ahead, and we've said we will not only help you with the implementation guide, we have also focused on what are the tools which can help you out. Example. Of course, this is just an example. We cannot give you an entire bucket list, but we said we will give that to you. Of course, today now, all the more it is updated. You have so many other features which is available, especially in the last 4 to 5 months. If you have seen, I'm sure each of you have come across so much of tools. And please understand, tools are one of the means. Remember, a tool in the hand of a fool is still a fool. So a tool will not solve a problem. The way you use the tool will solve the problem. Correct? So that is what is the focus. Now, many of the employees are working from home. We have a concept called BYOD, bring your own device. Now, how do you track your work? How do you track what is the if he's not copying the data and saving it? So like this, lot of these technical glitches and issues are there. So that is where your mobile device, laptops, PDAs, all these things are there. Some amount of risk we have to take, some amount we have to live with it. Correct? So that's how you actually mature. So that's basically how each of these sections is drafted. I highly recommend you to go through it in detail. Of course, I cannot take you through the 90 pages, but it definitely makes sense. Okay, just to give you the second section, how big it is. Then we have again have backup redundancy. What are the steps? How do you implement a backup solution? Then you have mobile device and data security. Okay, the do's and don'ts. We also given a few illustrations. XYZ and Go CA firm implemented a policy relating to mobile device. The policy contained the following: unique IDs and passwords, should not access unauthorized Wi-Fi, various basic things like this. Remember, we need not be an IT engineer to do all this. We just have to set a process and monitor it. And the beauty is, unfortunately, when we think that we will set up a process, technology, etc., we will bring everything at one shot. It is not possible. Because when you bring everything at one shot, you also please keep in mind, we also have to monitor the work of our employees. We also have to monitor the technology implementation. We also have to monitor whether the employees are adopting to the technology. We also have to monitor with our clients. We have to do clients receivable management. We have to also do business development. And with COVID, we have all the more challenges. So which means prioritization is the key. Take up a roadmap for next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. Step by step do it. I'm sure it becomes easier for everybody to achieve. Okay. So that's basically what I've covered in this particular section. Then we move on to copyright licenses, digital media. How are you storing your digital signature? All those basic questions are there. Your privacy law is important because, there's a new buzzword in the market today, information security professionals. Everybody are scared about this privacy because that has created a lot of questions, confusions. Who can have access to data? How do you have it? Do you have a privacy policy? And all of those things. correct? So that's why it becomes very critical. Once you have done this, you jump into the next section. What is the next section? The next section speaks about what is the competency of your employees. Section B, how do you develop the competency? For that, skill, resource, or managing internal IT infra. Do you have system administrators? Are they in-house administrators? Have you deployed anything on the cloud? Is there an annual maintenance contract with your hardware suppliers? Most of us don't do that. Is there a training skill staff relating to office automation? Or, how do you track work? You have what is the skill set? Does your employees have very good skill sets in terms of Word, Excel, database? What is the percentage? We have given the option to you. You define your percentage and then score. But remember, by giving more marks, you're not going to please anybody. So it always makes an honest attempt to fill this up. And then you have your qualification technology. Interesting. How many of your employees have these qualifications? DSA, CISA, C-RISC, CFE, FAFD, ICI. So some of you made a mention that you have these qualifications. Great. But the question is, are you able to put them into use? So those are the questions which all of us will have to ask. Then do you have a digital etiquette? Are the trainings conducted? Are they conducted on regular basis or once in a blue moon? How do you have some sort of a soft skill trainer? Do you have you only training all your employees? You yourself can do the training. Correct? Do you have a planning like that? So that defines you in your section 2. And then comes your section 3. Yeah. How do I use risk assessment for the purpose of my audit planning? Do I have something in place? And I told you, my dear friends, section 3 is basically to do with your discipline specific categorization. How are you carrying out audits? For example, do you do a risk assessment when you're starting off your audit? In that risk, what are you considering? Are the IT controls reviewed? Are you looking into any risk mitigation strategy, or blindly get started with the audit? So like that, you have various buckets. Then if we also speak about how you should do the risk control, risk assessment, IT general controls, what you have to review. Then are you using any automated software? If yes, you are using, how are you going to use it? Is it customized for bank? Is it customized for NBFC? Is it customized for insurance? Is it customized for SEBI? So how are you doing it? You can use a few of these softwares, just an example which is mentioned over here and there. If you feel that these softwares I don't want to use, you can use a generic software as well. Simplify Practice, Papilio, Cordial, Trocat, and all these have become popular during the last few months, especially because of lockdown. And our own ICA has MOU with a few of these companies. You can always go ahead and try. And once that is done, you go to the next stage. How am I extracting the data? Am I doing 100% audit? Am I doing applying analytics in my audit? Does the firm use automated tools? Do you have the staff communicated about availability of the tools? Are they adequately trained on the usage? Are staffs conducting training on a regular basis? So like this, you have a bucket list. This, what it does is, it will help you to assess exactly where the problem is. Because most of the time, we don't even know what the problem is. A Chinese proverb said, a problem is half solved when it is well defined. And that is where this list becomes very, very handy for you. Correct? So are you using data analytics? Are you using ECAD, Power BI, Tableau, any of these softwares? Hundreds of softwares. We just gave a few examples. Are you adopting to the cloud? Or is my cloud only with Gmail? After that, nothing I've done. Correct? So that is where this section comes in. And likewise, it also speaks about compliance, all these things. And the last one, have you inbuilt tools? Have you built in some customized solution, whether it's for client, ERP, your own accounting software? Do you have that? Is there a tool where you can automatically pull the data, push the data, extract the data, etc.? So that is what we speak about maturity. Have you deployed simple Excel formulas also? That is great. But is it solving your problem? Correct? And next comes your tax. So like this, it keeps on repeating every section. So I'll not spend too much time here. I'll quickly jump into the next section, which is your last section, where I've spoken on section D. D here is on emerging technologies. Yeah. How am I adapting to the emerging technology? What is it that I'm using? Okay. Now, for example, does the firm render analytics and big data driven services? Is this handled extensively by managers, or even junior folks are handling it? Are the trainings being conducted on this? Is the firm using various tools? So you might feel that, no, sir, I am not getting clients. No problem. Just mention it. That means that could be an area where you have to specialize or you can improvise. You feel, no, I don't even want to go to emerging technology. I want to improvise existing. Absolutely your choice. Feel free to do it. And that is what is the question over here. And what is the extent of automation of your office task? Is there an automatic periodic reminder which goes from your system to the person saying this is the due date, please follow? Is there a message? Do you have a company's, your own app? You know, we can talk about hundreds of things, but is your client informed? Are you being informed? That's the question. Has a firm adopted RPA? Maybe for a firm, it may be a little too early. Maybe your clients have adopted. If your clients are adopted, you can probably spend some time onto that. Then you speak about artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, correct? So how these things have come. So a lot of these buckets, what you see, are all futuristic, digital transformation, etc. In fact, digital transformation has now become such a big buzzword. Every company space, we are transforming, we're transforming. I don't know what. Whether transforming good for the worst, we don't know, but they transform. And if I come to the end, of course, I've spoken about which are all the software tools, various things are available. And advanced technology and communication. You have chatbots. Now, what's a chatbot? A chatbot is something when you visit the website, it'll quickly pop up. Can you see there? It says chat with us. Hi there. Welcome to our website. Ask us anything. We'll get a response in a few minutes. So that's a chatbot. It is able to chat or converse. So do you have some things like that? Correct? Do you have a mobile app? Do you have an API? Now you might feel that mobile app is not necessary unless you have to maintain all these things. Your client will have one more app. Say no problem. Can you send notifications through WhatsApp? 95% to 98% of our clients and our known circle people are all having WhatsApp. So go with that. Okay, so I've spoken, I've also said where all you can use for developing the chatbots. You know, to that extent, we have tried to spend some time. Also, I've spoken about what is IoT, how IoT impacts, etc. So that's basically what this entire guide is. Now you might be thinking, okay, this may become too much for me to digest, or this is too big for me. You know, it's too boring for me. No problem. Break it up. When I say break it up into smaller pieces. Take 1 week, every day, half an hour, morning or evening or both the times. I will focus only on this. Get this assessment and score yourself. Identify where you can improvise. The biggest problem is not identifying where you can improvise. And tomorrow somebody else will come and overtake you. So if I go from a digital learning hub portal, we have a self-service portal, right? So you log into the self-service portal, then you can log into the digital learning hub. Okay, I think my session is expired. So let me quickly log in once again. Yeah, in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me those questions. Or if you want me to throw some perspective, because after this, I'll show you the practical tool, how it works. I'm going to show you how this practical tool works. And immediately after that, I will jump into a case study. And then obviously I'll keep it open for questions. Yes, please. Questions are welcome. You can unmute yourself. We are a very small circle group. You can always say, sir, this is the problem. How do I address that? Is a problem? Feel free. Okay, so no problems, meaning everybody has started. Sorry?
Hello, this is Hitesh Jadhav here.
Yeah, hi Hitesh, please tell me.
I wanted to know how do we start to move to cloud, because most of us are working from home right now still.
Correct.
So where do we start and how do we train the team to start working on cloud-based? I have done some exploratory work for say, Office 365.
Correct.
So how do we start? Actually, that's what is.
So for starting, the first step is what is your problem you are trying to solve?
Yeah.
Now you're working from home, I understand. Now what is the problem statement for us?
Problem is that people all work in silos right now. And a lot of time is wasted in sharing files over email. and that collaborative environment of working which used to work.
That is a limitation. We don't have an option. That is absolutely a limitation. We don't have an option. But let me tell you a few things.
Yeah.
If you have a Google Drive, you have uploaded simple data in the Google Drive. Ask your employee to work on it, and the moment he's done it, close that screen. Wait for a few minutes. It will get refreshed in your Google Drive as well. Can you review it and sort of save time instead of you sharing screen, he sharing screen, etc.? Now that is the level, or that is the thinking or the thought process which you should apply. Why am I saying this? Because we know in this work from home environment or virtual environment, we are going to have challenges. If it was other way around, you can always sit next to your staff and say, hey boss, do this, finish it, and we'll close it. In this environment, there's going to be a challenge. But when we have a challenge, we can make our systems much more better. Okay, so therefore, pick up any problem. There will be 3 to 4 solutions which technology you can use it. I understand some case you don't have an option. Now, for example, you have to do inventory verification. You can't use it with your technology and work from home. And even if you have to do it, it is not worthwhile. You can't send a drone and say that you don't do the audit there, I'll sit in from here. It's not cost effective. So I have to take a hit. But I am saying focus on those areas where we can definitely bring the improvisation. That's my thought process.
Can we have something like the common folders which can be shared by all?
Yes. Yes. So let me show you how we do it in our office.
Kind of, on say OneDrive.
Possible, sir. I'm just sharing my screen over here. So I'm just giving you one example. Okay, I use OneDrive, Google Drive, Zoho Drive. I use all the 3 depending on what is the requirement. So I have a list over here, and I have a specific folder called Kendenco. Now, everything which comes to a majority set of things you will find over here. And this is not the bucket list. This is not the only list. I have other folders also, depending on my client, depending on the environment I have done this. So I know, for instance, if any document has to come for review, it gets uploaded over here. Of course, with different nomenclatures so that I know when I have to review it. I finish the review and I put it back to somebody else. Now, especially because of work from home, we followed on a different concept. We have a Zoho Drive now. Now in Zoho Drive, we have folders, client specific, person specific. So I know what work is doing. And I've told all my staff, wherever you are there in the world, save the data only here. Right. So what happens the moment they save the data, I will get the information here.
Okay.
Are you getting that thing?
Yeah.
So what happens is, in fact, I can get to know whether they've worked or not also. Say, for example, my colleague, he's done some work, correct? So I can just go see what time the date was modified.
Yeah.
Correct, to that extent. I mean, see, I'm not saying that I want to question their integrity. We have to trust them. Definitely we have to trust them. Because it's challenging time for all of us. But definitely there will be some amount of that, leisure and things like that they would want to bring across, right? So how do you bring that across? Now, if you are having some data or some clients which only you do, you may want to have a different OneDrive for that. So I have a different OneDrive for that. So it's a question of how you want to do it. And you can say that, let me sync up online. Let me go to onedrive.com and only that file I'll give the access to somebody else. He will update, he will get that link. He will not even have the access to download it. I'm not sure how many of them are aware that Google Drive has that option. You can give them the file, they cannot download it, they can only do the editing online. Of course, the version formatting will change. You have an option. Explore that.
Okay. And we can have a multiple people sharing the same folders?
Absolutely fine.
That is possible on OneDrive?
It's possible in any system, sir.
Okay.
It's possible in any system.
Okay.
So you can go to the folder.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's presume I have some, this is a random folder. You can just click share and you can mention somebody's email ID, and very important, you can mention what that person can do. Allow editing. Look at this. You can set an expiration date. You can set a password.
Okay. Got it.
So hundreds of options are there. We just have to go and explore that.
Okay.
So my suggestion is understand what the problem statement is. Know what your solution, 2-3 fellows are there. Identify the features of solution. Match both of them. If the features of the solution matches this, go ahead. Now some other companies, they do it other way around. Now we also use one tool, which is an office management tool. Okay. Now this tool has got a lot of features, but we are using it only for a few perspectives because we have some other tool for something else. Now what this tool does is it talks about what are my overall tasks in a day. So I know how many open tasks are there with me, with my other partners, how much is completed, how much is pending, how much is overdue. Correct? So I know roughly what it is. And I know overall statistics. I know how many of them have logged in today, how many of them have not logged in today, because today is a Saturday, they're all relatively relaxed. So I can sort of, send them a buck and saying that, boss, please update your timesheet. I know which are the clients. So I have to some extent, I'm not saying 100%, but I have a control. I know who's doing what work they do. And as though this is not sufficient, we have a process in our office that every Saturday we will compile what is the list of work we have to do for the next week. At least I have a plan.
Right.
Because most of the time I am sitting on webinars and other things. So how do I know, how do I drive the firm? Correct. On an average in a week, I spend at least about good 3 full days on webinars and trainings. I mean, that's the way of me giving back to the community and alma mater. Sometimes I have to have discussions with clients as well. So given these concerns or issues, we need to come up with a practical challenge.
Okay.
I've seen some companies who have done it much more level. In fact, their level of maturity, where I've gone, they also know if a particular task is there, how many subtasks is there and how much is spending for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question?
So, Narasimhan, there is a question from Ankur.
Yeah.
He wants to know how to keep check on websites being checked by article employees in the firm. Some easy solution or reference material for creating the checkpoint.
No, in this case, only method is firewall. You want to keep a tab what an employee is checking. The only method is firewall. So in firewall, there is a simple rule. If there is something called blacklist, it will blacklist all, or rather, sorry, it will go with deny all approach, and only the following websites it will permit. You have to go for a firewall.
Thank you for the help.
Yes.
So next question is from Jay. Is there a tool available on ICI portal where we can answer the questions and it can calculate a score based on the DCMM 2.0 model?
Perfect. That's the screen which I'm going to show you now. 2 minutes, I'll show that to you. Because I understand sometimes, you can't sit and fill up everything. It may not be practical, but you can fill this up. Shall I go ahead? Shall I show that tool?
Yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brian. So the moment I log in here, I have my SSP portal, I have my digital learning hub. So I click on ICI Digital Learning Hub. It will redirect me to the ICI Digital Learning Portal. Of course, you can log into your ICI Digital Learning Portal as well. That choice is yours. The moment you are done with this, you have a lot of courses inside. Okay. By the way, you also can see Information System Audit DISA 3.0 course. Okay, that's another course. Our institute has upgraded the existing DISA course. You can always go there and explore that. Let me quickly go to this Digital Competency Maturity Model version 2.0. So if you just go click on this, you can just go and launch it. The moment you launch, now a web portal opens up. Just closing the multiple screens to avoid the confusion. It takes a few seconds and it takes you to entire thing is available as a digital learn. So if you feel that, sir, I cannot read, I feel too bored, I feel sleepy, do a simple thing, go through this. Every day post lunch, 2 o'clock to 2:30. I know it's a little drowsy time, etc. Spend some half an hour, improvise yourself. So if we speak, the entire thing is covered over here. The overview, etc. And it talks about what is the size of your practice, what are the basic questions. You can go based on a criteria. You can define the section. Correct? So this is basically what is there. So whatever I spoke of, more from an interactive thought process is here. So I can just jump this thing and let me go to the next section. I am able to go to the next section because I've already heard this. Otherwise, I don't think you can jump it and go to the next section. Yeah, see, it starts off with, are you a member of ICAI or which member? Because these are the members through which we have an MOU. And I think because of they are also permitted to use this. So I say that yes, which region, India, submit. What is your size of practice? Let's presume I say I'm from 11 to 20. Now it says, okay. So you have given these information, let's go ahead. So we say start here. Now you speak about, do you offer audit services, taxation, accounting, management consulting? Do you see here A, B and D is automatically appearing. Depending on these sections, these will get highlighted. So if I choose accounting, section C3 gets automated. If I choose audit, so you have the freedom to choose everything. And then only thing you require patience. You'll have to patiently answer it. I mean, again, this one good thing about this tool is that it has a few steps where you can sort of, pause it and come back next time and resume it, etc. So let's say you get started section A. And just for information, it is also having a voiceover which will read it. So you need not worry too much about it. So you can just say, start the assessment and go ahead. So do you have a domain name? You answer it. It's going to take some time, as in it's not that, oh, click off button, everything is over. So I'm just doing some hypothetical answers for the time being. Once you're done with this, there are 15 questions in first section. There you go. It says you have scored 9 out of 15. Great. So you will not get a rating based on this 9 out of 15 because you have just finished section 1.1. Because you have still have section 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. That is why I said it requires time. Now, if you feel that somewhere you have some comments, etc., click on this notes button, make your notes. Just type it and sort of revisit that. Come down. Now you realize that 9 out of 15, you want to improvise yourself, go click on implementation guide. It will tell you what all is there. How do you manage domain name? What is the meaning of domain name? So this makes it very, very easier. So basically that book is converted into an e-learning platform. Correct? So once you're done with all of this, of course you need to click them because it tracks what you've completed, what you've not completed. And once you're done, go to reassessment if you want to. Or you can just go ahead and go to the next stage. And this is a regular exercise which you keep on doing once in 3 months, once in 6 months, etc. And that way you also get the entire score towards the end. Now you feel that you feel that you do not want this, you want to go back to some other section. So you have left hand side, table of contents. It will take you through, which is the next section. You can feel free to go there. So that way you have the flexibility and you can also choose what is completed or what is not completed. And that gives you a better score. So it also says next time when you resume, do you want to resume where you left off? Say yes, continue from there. Okay, so that's the tool which I wanted to take you through. Okay, any questions? Shall we move on? I just have a few more topics which I thought I'll just cover.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, Namrita, please go ahead.
In this DCMM model, there is a discussion related to social media presence. But as a chartered accountant, we are also expected to follow ICI code of conduct.
Yeah, wherever code of conduct is applicable, we have given a cross reference. You're permitted to have a social media presence. You can have a firm firm icon or a firm tab, etc. You can give updates. You cannot solicit work out of it. Your ICI regulations are clear. And we also have our updated ICI code of conduct, which is effective from July 1st. Right? So we'll have to adhere to it. See, we can't keep on mentioning everything. So we said wherever this is there, please go and we give a cross reference. So you can always go there and verify.
Thank you, sir.
So Narasimhan, there is one question which I have. For a chartered accountant, what is the level of technology knowledge required for him to understand this model, for him to be able to implement this model and successfully get a rating?
Okay. So the way we have done it is that even with basic amount of information, you can go ahead and do it. It does not require you to have a very high level understanding. As long as the basic concept, you know what is a server, you know what our basic principles are, you know what is how a client server works. In fact, we have used as limited technical jargons. And wherever you feel that a jargon is not understood, if you scroll down in the implementation guide, we have explained what it is.
Okay. Anybody has any other question, or else Narasimhan, you can continue.
Great. So what I'll do is I'll quickly take it up from here. Probably I'll have for another speak for another 15-20 minutes, and then let's have some interactions, some questions and challenges which you have faced, etc. So this implementation guide is what I was making a mention. I think we have discussed about it. I showed it to you live so that you have a hands-on or thought process on how that is and what it works. How do you measure? This is the important thing. How do you go up to the next level? Now, first and foremost step is you need to do a benchmarking. Now you have completed the entire assessment. What is the next step? You know where you stand, or you know what is the problem statement, and what is it that you can do to complete or go up. Correct? So you sort of document the list. You sort of prepare what are all the various questions or problem statements, and how do I actually implement it. And please remember, certain things are implementing very, very simple. You can just put in a software, probably it can solve the problem. For example, a simple thing like an antivirus, etc. But after that, you need to regularly monitor it. Now, how do you monitor the antivirus software? Most of the antivirus software today, you need not buy a retail edition, buy an enterprise edition. They give you one centralized console. So you go to one website, which is, let's say, Symantec dot whatever your organization, some small website, they'll give you one username, password. There you will get to know which all computers have it, what is the status. You get some interesting insights. We call it as EDR, endpoint detection and response. So like that, a lot of tools are available today in the market. Second, plan the initiatives. So you have already planned something, bring it into practice. Say, okay, within next 3 months, I will implement this. Next 3 months, I'm not going to do anything because it is a tax filing season for me. It's a busy season. Okay, I know tax filing is going to be critical for me, but still somehow I'll take some time. So small baby initiatives I will do. So like that, plan the initiatives. Then the third thing could be identifying resources and execution plan. Now, how do you know which all resources are sufficient? So this is where you spend some time. You define your KPIs, your requirements, or if that is too much of a corporate terminology, you basically say, what is your problem? On completion of ABC is when you decide your problem is solved. So what is that ABC? So those are the things which is expected. So you can define, oh, okay, these things are done, my problem is solved. So that is how you sort of, decide it. And once you have decided all of those, so you know your problem is solved and you keep on measuring it. Fourth, assessing the progress and revalidation against DCMM. It's a continuous process, iterative. And then you look into a review, a re-review, an external party comes in, you can ask your friend to do it so that you have more independent view and thought process. So how to prioritize? This is a very, very important thing. Because many of the times you have realized, there are a lot of questions, lot of points. I don't know how to prioritize. And this is where it is very important. You need to prioritize based on the value of the firm. So this whatever I'm speaking now is taken from the next publication which I've authored for the institute. This is on the virtual accounting guide where I've spoken about how you can prioritize from DCMM. So because DCMM is already a benchmark, from DCMM I said, how do I go to the next level? So this is where I've spoken on. How do you prioritize the project? You can begin by looking at each product or a simple question. What will be the impact of this particular project or technology for my firm? So where you find a heavy impact, that is what you need to take it up. Point number one. Point number two, set prioritize by identifying urgent and important projects. Now, how do you decide between urgent and important? This is a very, very, very interesting this thing. It's like a cat and a mouse story. Sometimes you feel everything is urgent, everything is important. And this is where you have to be very careful to decide which will come under what. And that is where there's a very, very interesting time management matrix by Stephen Covey. Very useful for you to decide how you should plan this. Important, urgent. This should always be a priority one. It is not urgent, but it is important. Priority 2. It is urgent and not important. Priority 3. Not urgent, not important. Last priority. Many of them I've seen, if it is, urgent, but it is not very important. Look at this. If it is urgent, it is not very important. You can also delegate it. That is one more very important rule. A work which has to be done urgently, but not very important. Client requires one file because he has to visit the department, etc. It's urgent because he has to visit, there is a timing. But is it important that only you get involved? The answer is no. Delegate it. And this is where it is very critical. Priority 1, 2, 3, if you're able to identify clearly. Of course, priority 4, we know that, I want to implement, a HR management software or a customer relationship management software. Okay, great. Is it very urgent? No, I can do it after 1 month also. Is it very important? No. So it comes under that. The other 3 is what is important. I thought I'll give you a few examples to get that thing right. First, urgent and important. Classical example could be these work from home issues. These are hard deadlines you just can't afford to miss. They must be prioritized first. Work from home technology, antivirus software. These are some things which are very, very important. Get it done immediately. If it has some amount of time cost, please get it done because it's urgent. At the end of the day, it is important. Today, we know how much is the security risks in the work from home environment, right? Let's jump the gun, go to the second side. Priority 2. It is not urgent, but it is important. This is where you have to be very careful. It is important for you to bring it, but it is not that today only you have to do it. A classical example could be you attended one webinar on data analytics and you got so very motivated, you understood it well. Said, tomorrow only I'll start using data analytics. Great. You use it. I'm not saying that tomorrow only, but should it be done tomorrow itself? Can it hold on for some time? So that is what is my question. So they are not urgent, but they are very important. So therefore, you do not have an immediate deadline. So see how well you can manage your time on that. The third, it is urgent, but it is not important. It could be a quick call with a client. It's a very urgent, get it done. But from an implementation standpoint, you want to deploy an IT solution which may be required only for one client. We spoke about, right, even in the break time. So somebody may have an issue. Hey, only during this work from home time, I may require this. For example, using VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure, a very simple model where a person opens Windows not by logging to his Windows. So he goes to the browser, a simple browser he has. From that browser, he goes and logs in and performs all this work. So therefore, the data is there within the browser, and that browser is actually a server which is loaded somewhere. It's a virtual desktop infrastructure. So it is a Windows which is working within another Windows. It has the best amount of security, and many of these large IT companies provide that, but it comes with a cost. Correct? So it may be urgency to deploy this, but it is only for a specific time period. Unless you are thinking about a strategy that in future, everything I'm going to do work from home only. Nothing wrong in that. So you will have to evaluate. Or maybe if it is under priority 3, and let's take a classical example, Tally. You are not able to use Tally because your staff does not have Tally license. Now Tally last month, they came up with an offer for practicing CAS that you can take it on rent at 50% cost. So for 6 months, they're giving it 1,800 or something. Of course, I'm not advocating Tally. Just to give you an example, assuming you want a Tally at your article staff office, who's doing all the accounting work, but internet is an issue. Okay, fine. Install that. It is urgent, but it may not be important, but you have to invest time. So go ahead. You have to invest time and money. And the last is not urgent, not priority. You want to have a software for tracking the licenses. You want to have an advanced software for doing HR, payroll issues, a lot of things. So that's totally your choice. So this becomes very important, especially the P1, P2, P3, 4 bucket. That's a very handy exercise. Next, how do I assess my firm's bandwidth? You identified some sort of a problem. You can use a simple template like this. A very simple template. Forget, I'm just giving a template as an example because generally we like formats. So assuming you have to do that, see, do a corporate strategy for your own firm. Now tomorrow, if you were hired to do this sort of an engagement for another firm or for another big company, you will go ahead and do it. Think on those lines and do that. We should become advisors to our own firm. Then we ourselves will realize. No doubt there is an element of cost involved, but that cost and resources is for your firm's betterment. So identify the gap, identify the priority, what is the resources required, what are the vendors, what are the products, what is the time involved, and then take a call. So I made a small case study, sort of to give a thought process in terms of how this can work. A simple case study, So there is a company by name ABC & Co. They have done a self-evaluation using DCMM checklist, and they have identified few problems. Level A, they've identified so many issues. Non-availability of corporate email ID, social media presence. So they've identified about 8 of these things. All the negative connotations appear here. They've also done, okay, sorry, I think there's been some slide. Just give me 1 minute. I think looks like I skipped one slide. Yeah, sorry for that. Oops, okay. Correct. Thank you. Sorry for that confusion. Yeah, so I was talking about this. ABCM Co is a firm. They've done their DCMM checklist. They've identified these are the issues. They also have identified in section C, which is discipline specific issues, audit. They've identified a few issues like this. They don't use automated tools. They're not using analytical tools. They don't have audit staff, etc. Of course, here I presume that CFM has every problem just for the purpose of understanding. In your case, you may have only 1 or 2 of these. Now, how do I get them converted? And that is where a simple template like this helps you out. So you have defined the requirements, non-availability of corporate staff, corporate email ID, no social media presence. So you have bucketed 10 points. Now the question is, what is your firm's requirement? And what is your priority? Look into point number 5. It's a high priority because you want a centralized server management system because that's your client data. Whereas look at point 2, 4, and 6. You may social media presence, it may not be required at current point in time. I am least bothered LinkedIn, Facebook, वो सब हमको नहीं चलेगा sir. मेरे को सिर्फ इतना चाहिए. Go ahead, stick on to that, be happy. But from a firm rating, you will still be at level 1. But maybe next year you may want to go to level 2. Correct? So that is how you sort of go to the next ladder. Correct? Let's look on the other end. You want non-availability of corporate email ID. So you feel that is necessary. Kuch to email ID chahiye mere ko. And today there are portals who can provide you at a nominal price. So that's a medium. Let's come completely down. No structured automated backup process. Backup is important, high priority. So you have defined which is your high priority, medium priority, and low priority. Once this is done, you can of course do the same thing for section C as well. Section C, it talks about no tool for audit planning. Now, considering the issues in terms of number of hours spent, number of clients which I'm handling, etc., I feel this is a necessity. So I kept a high priority. Whereas using data analytics tool, CAD tools, I find it as a necessary. Maybe if not now, after 1 month, I will definitely take it up. So it's a medium priority. Automated tools used for audit, maybe it's too early for me, but I somewhat feel it's necessary. IT controls for reviewing the audit. I am using mostly Tally here. Why is the question of IT control? I am only having the entire thing. So go ahead. Not it. Audit staff have limited understanding of the end-to-end automated process of the client. Client may not be end-to-end automated. So I'm able to manage it. Maximum he has is a POS machine. He has a Tally whatever. So he is able to do this sort of a work. So that is where your section seems. Now from this, you need to convert it on the template which I told you. So no centralized management, your priority is high. So what is the resources you require? You require one centralized server. I'm just giving you something over here. Yeah, you require a centralized server with all the data stored. Now you may also see, depending upon the type and the quantity of data involved, you may want to have a server computer. Now what is a server computer? A server computer means you use a Windows server license, which has the same configuration, but it has a server license. It can deploy so many things, but it is a costly affair. Maybe for a smaller organization becomes difficult. Now you want to deploy a structure where each folder only this fellow will have access. That folder only this fellow will have access. For that you have to bring in other Active Directory. So you need to bring in a good amount of things. So for your firm, it may be a costly affair. Alternatively, you can do one thing. I'll buy one normal personal computer, but I will have higher RAM, higher hard disk. This is what happens in 95% of the smaller offices, including my office. We may not prefer to have a server. I mean, I'm just giving an example. It depends on the case by case, but I still feel that is not sufficient. So this is one area, IT resources. Then come to vendor. You obviously do some sort of a inquiry. One vendor says 38,000, but he says no free support. But if you buy from an organized player like Dell, HP, etc., they say 40,000 and they're giving you 1 year warranty. Some fellows you pay a little more, they're giving you better warranty. Makes sense to invest in them. Please note your software, hardware, all of this has to be considered. I've just given an indicative price. Now you might be thinking, what are the time involved? Or what do I have to train? What is the resources? What are the issues? So identify the type of solution, finalize the budget, deploy the hardware, migrate the data from existing to the new system, test check the migration, retain one copy of old data, and then get started. A simple method. Of course, I told it in a very simpler method, but it does take some time. Now, this could be another example. No structured or automated backup place. Priority is high. What are IT resources required? You may probably, option number one, have a cloud-based backup solution. So it will come, take up the data and push it there. Second, you may want to do real-time synchronization. Example of Google Drive, Zoho Drive, OneDrive, whatever is there, it will keep on getting up. Like the one which I just showed you on the screen. The third, periodically backing up the data through external hard disk. You can take an external hard disk and do it. I've seen some other offices, they have what is called a SAN, storage area network. Whatever is stored in the main server, from there it will get backed up in the storage area network on regular basis. But each of them has its own cost implications, challenges. Now let's look into vendor. Now cloud-based vendor schedules once a day, it is 25,000 rupees per year. I have to think. Vendor B, Microsoft OneDrive, 1 terabyte, 330 rupees per month. Oh, it's more feasible for me. Vendor C, 1 TB hard disk, 3,500 rupees. So I'm just trying to give you the cost alternatives, examples. And what is the step you have to follow? Deploy the solution, install software if any, deploy the client console, very important. Each client will have, each device which you're backing up will have a client console. Correct? Define a process, check regularly, very important. Copy the data and check whether it's actually safe. Because very important, many times we back up the data, we don't check whether it is working in some other system. So all those things you have to take. And the last could be no tool used for audit planning. There's no tool used for scheduling, no use. This is also a priority. So I check which are the softwares having these facilities, creating tasks, subtasks, assigning, uploading documents, file archival, timesheet. So I go through various options. Vendor A gives me cloud-based service, 250 rupees per user per month. Vendor B says on-premise office management, 10,000 rupees. Vendor C, cloud-based office system, but he says 300 per user. So again, they have various things. So please note, this is an exclusive audit management software. This fellow says he will give you any office management. It includes even audit. So you may want to prefer that. So what are the steps involved? Assess the utilities, confirm how data is being stored, identify how the support will be there, explore the tool if it can go beyond audit. Can it do much more? Correct? So that's how you sort of go to the next step one by one. And remember, whenever you bring in any sort of an improvisation, innovation, these three are very critical. Mind, skill, tool. Your mind should have that thought process. Hey, you know what? Let's get started. Develop a strategy. Go for it. What you want to do, what is the services you want to render, please keep it defined. How do we build the business model? So mind it is ready, then comes the skill. Do my staff have the skill? Train them. Do I have the, how do I obtain that? Ask the vendor itself to provide a training. He will give you a YouTube lecture series where he can train. How do I attract people? So all these are skills. And tools, we spoke about so many tools. See the cost, see the implications, etc. So that is the way you practically deploy these issues. And many of them always ask me, how do I sort of benchmark? How do I sort of improvise that? How do I use this DCMM going forward? So identify the results and areas of improvisation. Go to step 2, implementation, subsection, each of the points you go through it. Once you've got an idea, comfort level, identify what all tools are necessary, what all skills are necessary, what is it from your mind you need to change. Form a committee, form a small group. If it's a proprietor, you can form the proprietor plus one senior article, make somebody accountable. Your staff also will feel excited. The problem is we don't give these type of work to our staff. We keep on giving the accounting, debit what comes in, credit what goes out. He goes out one day. Correct? Get them involved in these sort of things. They also get the sense They also know that. And tomorrow, if they want to start practice also, we are helping them indirectly, correct? So form a committee for that. Next, acquaint, explore various tools, do various demos. There are so many tools available in the market. Upskill yourself, unlearn, relearn, and then define the process. SOP is important. What is it that you should do? These are the steps. Once it is done, run a proof of concept, run a POC, test a particular case, see whether it works fine or not, and then learn from the issues. You know that POC was not successful or great, not so great, learn from it and keep on improvising and repeat. So that is what you have to focus on. One more other question which I keep on getting, how do I choose which hardware, which software is necessary? Do I use Windows? Do I use Macintosh? The choice is yours, sir. You know the best. But what are the critical factors? Your RAM should be adequate enough. And today, 4 GB RAM is sufficient. However, the data sets are increasing. So therefore, it is recommended anything above 4 GB is great. Your hard disk is of two types. One is a HDD hard disk, another is a SDD hard disk. HDD, we call it as, your dynamic hard disk. It will keep on revolving. So it's going to consume more power, more processing speed. It's more cheap. Your static hard disk, as the name suggests, it's static. So it uses solid state, right? It does not have a disk which is moving. So what SDD hard disk can give you is, it's obviously expensive, but it gives you better quality performance. But I think normally for a firm like us, HDD is sufficient unless you're dealing with big data, analytics and things like that. How much hard disk space? Half a TB to 1 TB is very good today. And I don't think we have so much of data that terabytes and terabytes. So I think that's good enough. Processor speed, consider anything which is i3 and above, which is decent. i3 and above and equal it. Because i3 is for Intel, you may have various other things. Software is very important. Hardware is somehow we will manage through. And of course, Windows is predominantly preferred because most of the ROC and other websites are compatible with that. If you want to have a Mac, feel free to have it, nothing wrong. But take care of these basic prerequisites, your choice again. From a software development standpoint, what is your firm strategy? You have to understand. Where is the firm looking into for next 3 to 5 years? Link it to your process. Is that software necessary for your process? Remember, process and technology go hand in hand. And tool is one thing which keeps both of them together. Understand the model of deployment. Are you talking about only in your laptop, only in your computer, only in the cloud? Many places, after I spoke in the session, they said, sir, I don't trust cloud. I want my own system. Your choice. Correct? Understand the standard functionality. What is it that they can offer? Standard functionality. Then test it with a real use case. Say that, sir, this is what is the issue. I will test it for 1 week. Only after that, I'll buy your license. I'm sure everybody will give you that offer. Train and support. Do you have the required training? How do you migrate it? Limitations of the application. So all these are issues which you have to address. Then what is the security challenge? Does the vendor, is he secured enough? Is he good enough that he has some sort of a security credentials, HTTPS, ISO 27000 compliant, SOC certified? All those things you can check, and you can do a due diligence of vendor. What if you're using the vendor and tomorrow vendor runs out of business? Correct? So you should have a backup option. So all those things are something which you have to look into. So my key message and key takeaway for you, my dear friends, is invest and experiment in technology. Unless you do that, we will not grow. Adapt, adopt to emerging trends. Spend some time, play around, experiment it. Build awareness, get people involved, engage in regular debates. Train, reskill, upskill, and learn, unlearn, and relearn. Dedicate resources and time. And very important, we need to move from our approach of tick to the click. So that's what I wanted to speak about. Of course, this is about our firm. This is a group where I keep regularly sharing updates on technology. Feel free to join that. And I have a lot of YouTube videos and other things hosted on various parts of technology. And I'm sure various concepts on technology, beg your pardon. And I've been regularly speaking in BCS as well. So thank you so much, Namrata and team, for giving me this opportunity. I'll be happy to take Q&A and some candid discussion. Pranay, in case you're speaking, you're on mute. Or rather, we're not able to hear you.
No, I'm waiting for anybody.
Oh, okay. Sorry, because I just saw that Zoom with that.
Yes. Okay. So before, while people come up with the question, I have one question. What is the frequency of this assessment? Ideal frequency.
Annually compulsory. Annually compulsory. Do it during your off season, because on season, obviously, we all are tied up with tax and compliances and a lot of things. Recommended once in 6 months. Because any project which you have to implement, it could be a simple thing. It roughly takes about 5 months to 6 months. Because first month, you don't know what you're doing. Correct? Second month, your staff does not know what they're doing. The third month, both of you get some sort of clarity. Fourth, fifth is where stability is there. And sixth, it becomes a good case. Unless it's just an enhancement of an existing process which you're doing.
Okay. So I think you explained it so well, nobody has a question.
Thank you. I always have this fear, right? Either they didn't understand anything or they understood everything. So for the sake of motivating myself, I'll take that positive part of it. Yeah, Namrata, over to you. I think we are good. Oh, sorry, whoever is the next set of people.
Pranay, would you like to go ahead with vote of thanks?
Yes. So if there are no questions, I would like to propose a hearty vote of thanks to Narasimhan for sharing his time and energy and his knowledge for helping us to understand this DCMM model. It has been there for a long time, but not widely used by people, because many people are still not aware of this model. And I know Narasimhan had another session at Isaka Mumbai chapter today morning, which I was attending on the other PC, and now attending a session here on this PC. So great effort by him. So since morning he's been speaking. I don't know whether you have some more sessions lined throughout the day. So our chairman in the morning, he mentioned that he's a find of this 2020. I'm very sure that yes, he's been very helpful in getting us at a maturity level and helping people to adapt this model. So thank you, Narasimhan, for this wonderful session.
Thank you so much.
And we hope that you would keep continuing to contribute to BCS activities.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
over to you.
Thank you, sir. It was pleasure listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.